Hello, and welcome to the podcast where our goal is to remind you that amidst the chaos and craziness of the world, there is still plenty of good that's worth shouting about. In each episode, we're going to be joined by nonprofit professionals, leaders, experts, and advocates to hear their stories, facilitate connection within the nonprofit sector, and hopefully put a smile on your face, because that's always nice. This is Nonprofit Connect with Matt Barnes. Let's share some good. Hola, and welcome. Bienvenidos.
Wow.
Nonprofit Connect with Matt Barnes.
That's good.
Right?
Me llamo Tiffany Pope.
And me llamo Matt Barnes.
Okay.
All right, there we go. We're basically not bilingual in any way, but look at us making the effort.
Yeah, we're
I
trying.
feel so stupid when I try to speak other languages.
Mm.
When you go to other countries, people tell you, like, try to speak the language, right?
Yeah.
But then I feel like I'm insulting them because I'm butchering the few words that I know.
Yeah.
So...
And they end up making fun of you anyway.
And they end up making fun of you, and you'll work so hard to put a sentence together like, Hola, me llamo Mateo, ¿dónde está el baño? And they're like, it's right over there. They just in English respond, and they're like, just stop trying. This is just embarrassing for you.
You worked so hard for nothing.
Yeah, exactly. We jumped right into this.
We
Welcome
sure
to Nonprofit Connect, where we discuss the most important issues in the world, like bilingualism and the lack thereof that we have here. Wow. I'm sorry. Anyway, no, that is not what we're doing here today. We're talking about nonprofits, and we're talking about people who make the world a better place. And we bring guests on here to hear from them how they're doing that and learn from them and steal all their brilliant information and wisdom so that we can apply it ourselves.
Yeah.
And so that you, our listeners, can apply it yourselves.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love this show.
It's so great.
So good.
It's so great.
So good.
And Tiff just got back from Ireland.
Well,
which
Northern Ireland and Ireland, because I went to both.
Okay, whatever. But you tell me if speaking of the whole language issue, language barrier when you travel, I had more trouble in English-speaking countries in Europe than I did in non-English-speaking countries.
Okay, I have to agree.
Right?
Because their accents are so thick.
Exactly.
It's so hard. And their slang is way different.
And they say things, like I remember the first night I got to England, I got to London, and I was hungry, and the only thing open was Burger King. So we walked down to Burger King, and I start to order, and the girl behind the counters, I've ordered my food, she says something to me, and I'm like, what?
Like, what on
and
earth?
She says it again, and I go, what? And like in my head, I'm going, okay, what is it that they're normally asking me at this point in this conversation? Because this is a standard conversation. Like, I'm going to have this. Okay, that'll be this much and whatever. And I thought, it's for here or to go. But they had a different phrase for it. Like, I think it was for here or takeaway. Mm. But she said it so fast and with the thick accent, I couldn't understand. So I just was like, I'll take it to go. And she was like, okay. And I was like, oh, good, I guessed the right thing.
Wow.
But if I was in Italy or Germany or another country like that, there was always somebody within earshot that understood English. So if I didn't know how to communicate, somebody would jump in and help. Or like I said, you'd try to speak something and they'd just be like, yeah, I speak English. You just don't stop trying. Please stop trying. This is embarrassing for everybody. And I don't want to be that American.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you.
But I'm kind of that American, I guess.
I wonder if people think that we're like crazy or just like what people think about us.
No, they think we're crazy.
Yeah.
For sure.
You're right.
Yeah. Okay, well,
back on track.
Speaking of crazy, how about that for a transition? Jessica Schrieber, our guest today, is not crazy.
Yeah.
Yay! There you go. She seemed really cool, actually. Okay, so my sister, Mary, has been in the fashion industry for a long time and lived in New York and did fashion for a long time, stuff there with like Marc Jacobs and some other brands. And my dad ran a clothing company for a long time. So I know the area of what Jessica's talking about. She's the founder and CEO of FABSCRAP. And you wouldn't know it or guess it, but the amount of fabric waste that fashion designers and houses have is huge. Like, it's a ton. And so she has started FABSCRAP as a charitable organization that turns old clothes and fabric into new garments or spare fabric for designers or design students. And they've got these warehouses. It's incredible.
That's awesome.
I was like, man, this is one of those things where it's like, it's a need most people probably don't even know exists.
Yeah.
And the solution that she's come up with is genius, and it's huge, and it's making such a big difference. And most people probably don't even know about it. So that's why I was like really excited to interview Jessica and hear more about it. And I'm excited for you all, our listeners, to hear these things as well, because she's innovative and
I'm
creative.
excited.
And it's great.
That's so cool. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's me.
Matt Barnes.
I'm here with Jessica Schrieber. Jessica, welcome to the show. Thanks for doing this.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm glad to have you. I'm excited to hear more about FABSCRAP and everything that you're doing. Before we get into that, we always start with a segment we call 3 Random Questions. So we have a list of many, many random questions, and we randomly choose 3 of those random questions. So it's like double random, right? Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, I think these are pretty easy ones today. Are you a dog person or a cat person?
Cat, 100% cat.
Cat person, why?
I've always had cats. That's been sort of my pet of choice, but also I appreciate that they can take themselves to the bathroom and I don't have to get up early in the morning and leave the house.
Well, that is a valid point. Valid point. I'll give that one to you. Yeah, for sure. What is your favorite book and why?
That's a good question.
Or
'Cause
a
I
favorite
read
book.
a lot. A favorite book. I think I always fall back on Life of Pi. That book I really enjoyed. It felt like it had a big impact on me.
I've never read that one. I should.
No,
I've heard
it's
great things.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good.
All right. And then finally, do you have any irrational fears? And don't worry, we're not going to play any tricks on you. There's no snakes are going to pop out or anything.
I mean, so many more because I am a new mom than I've had in the
congrats.
past. Thanks. So my irrational fears have multiplied.
Of course.
But personally, I have a irrational fear of deep water. I've
Oh.
never gone deeper than 8 feet in the swimming pool. I don't really enjoy like
Wow.
aquariums and big tanks of water. It really freaks me out for some
Wow.
reason.
All right. Everybody's got their things, you know. You never know. It's who knows what's out there under the water.
Yeah.
Right? Did you
Exactly.
watch Jaws too young? Is that what happened?
It's not even a shark thing. I think it's honestly, it's like too much water above my head is the fear.
Okay. Just feels like you're
Yeah.
too far away from the safety
From
of the
air.
surface. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that. That makes sense. All right. Well, thank you for putting up with our random questions. Just trying to, get to know you a little bit better. Tell us though about you. What is your origin story? Where did you come from and how'd you get to what you're doing now? And then tell us about that.
Sure. So I'm now the founder and CEO of FABSCRAP, but origin story, I grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I did a lot of backpacking and hiking with my family through national parks. And so I think I grew up with like a deep appreciation for the natural world and our resources and being outside. And so I went to undergrad in Arizona State, and that's where I got introduced to climate change and sustainability. And when I found out that we're currently using the resources of 5 planets while we live on one, it was a moment of panic for me. And that's when I switched my major, my focus, everything to climate science and education. And so that's what I got my master's in at Columbia. And from there, I interned and then started working at New York City's Department of Sanitation as they launched their clothing recycling program. And now FABSCRAP is a similar program, but working with commercial businesses, mostly in the fashion industry, to recycle their textile waste.
That's awesome. So I love that because I always think it's fun to go, what are the things I'm passionate about? What are the resources I have and the knowledge that I have? How can I put that together in a way that somebody else might not think to do that? And it sounds like that's exactly what you did.
Yeah, I think I had a unique vantage point from where I was at sanitation, where I was seeing a lot of the city's waste and how the city managed its waste. And then hearing from commercial businesses that they had this very specific waste stream and they didn't know what to do with it. And it didn't fit in with the city's program, which largely focuses on post-consumer and like residential waste. And so I could kind of see how like, well, this thrift network exists for our used clothing and our used home goods. Why couldn't there be thrift infrastructure for the raw materials? So FABSCRAP works with yards of fabric, unused leather skins, cones of yarn, buttons, zippers, trims, etc. So it was really just kind of seeing that there's an opportunity for this. Seems like a niche waste stream until you work with 800 fashion companies, and then it's actually quite a lot of waste.
Yeah. Oh, it's so funny. I was reminded yesterday, this is really random, but ties in. I had a memory pop up on Facebook from like I don't know, 12 years ago or something like that, of something I posted that I had forgotten completely about. But it was an article of this, I think he was a high school kid who did a whole project analyzing the amount of ink that was wasted because of the fonts we use, and how
Oh,
and
wow.
he did this analysis and showed, he started, I think, with his school itself, but then ended up doing it for the federal government, doing an analysis of how much money they could save by changing to a thinner font. And
Wow.
it was hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, just by, because the font he was, Garamond or whatever he was saying, is then, everybody was using Times New Roman or Arial or whatever, and it's thinner, and so it uses just slightly less ink, but how amazingly that adds up,
Yeah. Yeah.
and literally could save, the government hundreds of millions of dollars. It was, and in his school, it was, millions of dollars even, and so, or hundreds of thousands of dollars just at that school. So it is amazing how those little bits, people dismiss it because, oh, it's just a little bit, it's just a little here, a little there, but it really does add up. It's that bit of feeling like, can I really make a difference? But yeah,
Yeah,
you can.
but drops in a bucket still fill a bucket. Like
Exactly.
it still is meaningful. It's almost like, was it Office Space where they thought the pennies? Do you know the movie I'm talking
Yeah, yeah,
about?
yeah. I'm thinking of I'm trying to remember about the pennies.
They like diverted pennies from transactions, but then those pennies
Oh,
were like millions and millions of
yes, yes,
dollars.
yes, yes. Was that Office Space? I can't remember now, but yes, I totally remember what you're saying. Yeah, I was like, oh, just round it up or round it down or whatever, and it ended up being
The
like an
half cents
insane
even.
amount of
Yeah.
dollars. Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
You never know, like, these things. So has that been like a challenge for you? Because I think for nonprofits in general, there's the challenge. I mean, for everyone, but especially for nonprofits, the challenge of getting your message out, connecting with people, getting them to buy into it. Obviously, that's something everyone shares. But when it is something like that, where it's like, hey, even just some extra scraps help make a big impact. How hard has that been for you to communicate?
It's interesting. So we kind of have two parts to our business. There's the B2B side where we're working with fashion brands to divert their waste from landfill.
Sure.
And then we have the B2C side where all of those materials are available for the public to use. And so we have our fabric thrift stores. And so when I'm working with a fashion company and I'm describing, like, well, here's the type of waste we take, it's like they immediately get it. I think
Okay.
I've spoken with so many members of companies who have been hoarding fabrics under their desks because they don't want
Yeah.
to throw it out. And they know exactly how much they order and throw out every season. So someone working in fashion actually like almost immediately understands the need for what we're doing. And then on the flip side, the people purchasing fabric from us, it's still really high quality material.
Sure.
It's just smaller quantities. So like, can you order 100 yards? No, but we have 5 to 20 yards of what you need. And so I think there's a good understanding too that like businesses order too much and waste so much. Why not make it available to individuals? And so there's a within like the creative community, I think a good understanding too of the opportunity. It's really people who don't think about fashion at all,
Yeah.
or don't think about sort of the creative space at all. That it's a harder explanation. Describing volumes though, for anybody though, I think when I'm saying, "Oh, FabScrap has collected close to 2 million pounds," that is really hard for people to visualize.
Right.
And so in our warehouse, actually, we have this giant pile of black bags, full of fabric that we still need to sort. And that visually, I think, is the most impactful thing for
Mhm.
people. So our warehouse is open to the public. When you come and shop for fabric, you walk past this mountain of fabric we still have to sort through. And when you see it visually, that's when I think people really start to understand the impact.
Was that intentional, or was that kind of a, oh, that was just kind of worked out? Happy
um,
accident?
Happy accident because it takes a long time to sort through the
Yeah.
fabric.
Yeah.
And so of the 2 million pounds we've collected, I think we've gotten through about 75, 80% of that.
Okay.
But that leaves about 100,000 pounds that we have to
Yeah.
still
Well,
sort through.
and I
So
assume you're still collecting as well, so that it
it,
never really goes away.
it never stops. I tell my team, you have to make your peace with the pile. It lives and breathes. Like we're moving stuff out, but we're also bringing stuff in
Sure.
constantly.
And then I'm assuming you're cataloging that somehow as it comes in, and there's a whole process there. I would assume of
Yeah.
what you're doing with it.
Every brand that recycles with us, all of their material gets weighed, and every year they get an impact report from us that lets them know how much they diverted from landfill, what was recycled, what was reused, if anything went to landfill, and why. So for every brand, we're definitely keeping pretty meticulous data. And then on our end, we're also tracking like how much is moving through our thrift stores, how much is going home free with our volunteers, really making sure we have sort of accounting for at least the weight and volume of all of the material. There's no way we could possibly track like, here's the silk chiffon and here's this
Right.
cotton jersey. Like we're not drilling down that far.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It would get insane at that point. That it's such a, unique and specific niche. And I think it's cool that, because in some ways, even though you have that communication or education gap that needs to be communicated, but you've picked an audience that kind of gets that already. So it's not as difficult necessarily. So you sort of have a built-in, I mean, you have a built-in supply, which is great. Like these people all know exactly, and they know what you're trying to do, and they've got the stuff. And then the people that are creative people, we're looking for creative stuff all the time anyway. And
Right.
so it's like, cool. Yeah, I get that. That's really great. Now, how are you funded?
So we're a little bit unique in that respect too. It was really important to me that because this is corporate waste, that like the industry fund the infrastructure that we're trying to build. And so the same way that a company would pay for trash pickup or pay for paper recycling, we're just the textile version of that. So
Okay.
all of our fashion brand partners, they pay for the service and it's
Hmm.
based on weight. They make a service request, we come and pick up the fabric, we weigh it, and then we invoice them. And so that helps hold the industry accountable for the waste that the industry is creating.
Yeah.
And then we have our fabric thrift store where we're able to sell a good amount of fabric. Right now, the division is about 40% of what we receive is reusable and about 60% will be recycled. And so our fabric thrift stores move quite a bit of fabric as well. So
Sure.
between fabric sales and service fees, we're about 80% self-funded. And then we have fundraising arms for individual donations or for grants or foundations. And that's where the other 15 to 20% comes from.
Wow. You may have already said this and I missed it, but when did you start this?
2016. So
Okay,
we turn
2016.
eight. Yeah, turn eight this year.
Awesome. That's so great. That's the same year I started my company. So, it's funny
Oh.
how, like, in some ways you think, oh, it hasn't been that long, but that's a long time. I mean, it feels like probably quite the journey for you there.
Yeah, I mean, congrats to you too, because I think surviving through COVID, we should add like 5 more years
Yeah,
to what it
exactly.
takes to be a business owner.
Absolutely. What have been the biggest challenges that you maybe didn't foresee in this, as far as, specific to being a nonprofit, specific to being somebody who's trying to provide a service?
I think specific to nonprofit is the lack of opportunity for investment. And so originally, when I was toying with the business idea and there were two sources of income, and I was like, could this be a for profit? There was a lot of investor interest, but I saw the need for volunteers and community building. I personally didn't need to benefit from this outside of like my salary at the
Sure.
org. And so when I went the nonprofit route to see a lot of investor interest disappear because there's no
Yeah.
longer equity to give, I
Right.
would say that that was really challenging because it meant every moment where we need to grow to keep up with the demand for our services, we have to fundraise or we have to stretch beyond what we're currently doing and then wait for the income to follow.
Yeah.
So growth moments have been particularly hard. And
How have you
that's
handled
not
that?
even. We try and go by the phrase like if you build it, they will come. And
Yeah.
so every system that we build, I try and build beyond what it's currently needed for. So even something like the online platform where we accept service requests and sign on new partners. I tried to build that beyond exactly how we would use it in the moment, but think like, well, what happens when we add another city? Like, what if we open in
Right.
LA and what would that look like? And how do we separate service requests? And so I think the only thing you can do when it's not investor funded to immediately like grow, you have to just plan for growth so much more in advance,
Yeah.
years maybe in advance.
Yeah, that's a great tip. I think we just did at one of our live events, we just did this a screening of the documentary Uncharitable. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's fantastic. But that's one of the big challenges that it addresses in nonprofit space is the fact that, we don't have the opportunity to get the investments that for profits do. And because of that, and on top of that, the issue of directed giving and people wanting to really kind of tell you how to spend the money, and it makes it harder to innovate and to plan ahead for the future. So yeah, I mean, I think when you have the opportunity, when you do get the opportunity to do something, really thinking of like how far can we make this go,
Yeah.
beyond the immediate, but thinking of the big picture of let's set up as much as we can in this so that we can get the most mileage out of it if we can.
Exactly. You almost have to be extra resourceful already. Like as a nonprofit, I feel like everybody's coming at it from like the most conservative budget that you
Yeah.
can, but you have to be extra resourceful with everything, with the time, with the staff, with the planning. Um, and yeah, I think to your point, it's also difficult like when general operating support is not the norm because sometimes what I really need is just to be able to give my team a raise because they're
Yeah.
working really hard. But that's not something that is like the brand new flashy project that grants and donors potentially want to fund. But what I could really use is to just give my team a raise
Yeah.
every year.
Yeah.
That's also so the general operating support is would be something that like I would love to see grow.
Yeah, I think it's so backwards how, I can talk to any business leader and talk about the importance of taking care of your team, the importance of investing in your people, the importance of hiring the right people and paying them well. And yet those same people, when they go to apply that to a nonprofit, they don't. You know what I mean? Like they're just that
Yeah.
it's like a brain block there. But if you have the chance to sit down with them and ask them those questions, that it's kind of like, oh yeah, I guess, but we don't all have the chance to do that, and especially with each individual, and so it's very difficult. We've been set up to, as the documentary said, people like their nonprofit workers poor, which is just like it's bizarre. It's like invest all this money in something that's gonna, like in making sure that kids have more candy or whatever, but something that's actually gonna do good or whatever, no, 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 that should be minimal. The example they gave that hit me the hardest was, there's the incentive for people coming out of college and getting their education to go into nonprofit work just isn't there because it's actually cheaper for them to go and take a $400,000 a year job and donate a full quarter of that to charity, and they get credit, and and people are like, "Oh wow, you're a philanthropist," and all of that, than to take a $80,000 a year job in philanthropy.
In the nonprofit.
you
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
and then
Yeah.
they could donate their 100,000, get the tax write off, get all the credit, be on the board, and tell the $80,000 person what to do instead of you know and I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, we just don't even think about these things, and it's really a challenge. It's one that I really hope we can bring some reform on soon.
Yeah, I mean, a big incentive for me was the public service loan forgiveness for
Mm,
when I went to grad school was if you work government or nonprofit to be able to have loan forgiveness after working at a nonprofit for 10 years. But
yeah,
I mean, 10 years is a commitment.
it's a long
and
time.
and I don't know if that program is even going to continue with the way that student loans are working, but that was really important for me was
Yeah,
like if I make the commitment to go nonprofit or government, I think that like having that program was a big piece of that.
yeah. What are some of the other challenges that you faced, that might, or creative solutions that you've come up with that may be helpful for other nonprofit leaders?
So I think one thing that we have done in kind of a unique way too is how we utilize volunteers. I think traditionally some nonprofits kind of sign up a volunteer and that volunteer works with them very regularly and is on a schedule, and it's a more formal position.
Yeah.
Our volunteer program is open to the public. You sign up online, and it's a 3-hour volunteer shift. And you help us sort through the material. And then, as a thank you, at the end, we let volunteers take home some fabric for free. So, in that capacity, instead of, well, we have 10 volunteer positions at our org. To date, we've had over 8,000 people
Wow.
volunteer at the FABSCRAP. And it's so win-win in that, like, we get the help to process through all of this material. But then for a fashion student, when fabric can be so expensive,
Right.
to get some free fabric and really high quality, like nice designer fabrics,
Right.
get that for free, is really great. Plus, they're seeing the impact of their industry. They're seeing the waste. They're learning about sustainability. So hopefully, as they move into the industry, they're taking a whole new framework where they can do better.
That's really great. And I would imagine that if somebody wanted to be a regular volunteer, they can just keep signing up as they want to and
Of
do that,
course.
or
Yeah.
people can do a one-time thing.
And we definitely have like graduated programs where we have like more responsibility the more that you volunteer with us, and we'll move people up in sort of what they help with. But you just want to drop in. And so we've had people who just like make volunteering part of their like trip to New York.
Yeah.
They'll come and volunteer for 3 hours and get some fabric and see more of Brooklyn and outside of the city. And so it's nice that so many different people can get involved for as long or as little as they want to.
Well, I was just saying, I haven't been to New York in so long, and I need to get back. So if we do, I'm gonna come up and visit you guys and see what you're doing there because it sounds so
Yeah,
cool.
come see the pile.
My sister actually, she lived in New York for a long time and went there to go to Parsons for fashion and design, and then worked with Marc Jacobs and a couple other designers, and then moved back out here. But um,
Nice.
so I got a little exposure to that when I would go visit, but it's been a while now.
Well, she probably knows exactly what type
Yeah.
of waste stream we're dealing with here. And we work with Parsons quite a bit. We also do pop-up sales at the fashion schools. So even if someone can't make it out to our warehouse, we try and bring fabric to the schools pretty regularly so that they can shop from school.
That's awesome. Is there anything else that you would want to share that would be helpful for people in the nonprofit space? Something you've learned, or something you just, feel like you have a good handle on that would be helpful?
I think one of the things that helps us a lot is the earned income. And so where there's opportunities for that, I would say like lean into those. It's so much more stable and consistent. I think I have leaned quite a bit on my board, and the board development takes a while, but to
Yeah.
have a really supportive and engaged board who's familiar with your industry is just, it's so helpful. And I can't like lean on them enough sometimes as we go through operational challenges. And I think we've been really open to failing fast. And if something's not working, like, even though sometimes it takes a lot of time to set up a program, if after several months or a year that program isn't performing for us the way that it did when it launched, like, we don't need to keep doing that program. And
Oh,
so
that's that's
that's
so nice.
I mean, with it's always hard to like end something, but for example, during COVID, we had launched digital workshops where someone from our community would teach a skill to other people over Zoom, and you could order fabric for it and like work along with them. But as people started to go back to work and be more in person, those didn't translate to
Yeah.
people coming to the warehouse to learn sewing. And so, we can retire things when we need to. And sometimes you get so stuck in a mode, it feels
Mhm.
like there's not that flexibility, but we've tried to stay pretty open to like everything is revisable.
Well, I think it's and this is whether you're a nonprofit or a for-profit or anything, is letting your if you allow the what and the how and all that to dictate how you do things, you never are going to grow, and you're going to lose relevance. But if you can really be focused on that why, why do you exist? What are you about in that way? And let that inform, then those details are going to change as you learn new things, as culture changes, as whatever. But that's okay because you're still driven by the same thing. And
Yeah.
I see a lot of nonprofits who, they hang on to, well, we've always done this. And so we can't stop doing that. And I'm like, but if it's not working, it's draining your resources. It's distracting from the actual problem, whatever, get rid of it. Like it's time to,
Yeah.
it's time to move on from that. So, but it's hard for people to do that if they don't have that mindset, especially if they don't have that mindset in the beginning when they lay that foundation. And it sounds like you started with that.
Yeah, we're not really married to anything outside of providing the service and selling the fabric. And so any other creative things we can do around those
Yeah.
two pieces around keeping fabric from landfill, we're pretty open to it. And I think the other thing I kind of preach to the team is that perfect shouldn't be the enemy of good.
Yeah.
Like if you wait until it's the perfect time to do something or every single detail is correct, you're just losing time in the evolution that's going to happen once it launches anyway. And so if we're in a good enough state, like let's do it
Yeah.
and then iterate and don't try and perfect all those iterations before you even get started.
Absolutely. That's a hard one for everybody to get sometimes. I think I know for me, I get caught up in but it's not ready yet. Maybe, and then it's like, no, you got to pick a point, and anything creative, whether it's like creative arts or it's just being creative in your approach to something, there's always room to tweak and change. And you have to decide when it's done
Yeah,
because otherwise it's never done. There's always things you can change and fix and grow. And, so
always.
you just have to have that discipline to go, nope, we're done. Put it out. Let's move on to the next thing. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Jessica, thank you so much for sharing today. I think what you're doing is truly awesome. I've never heard of anything like it. I love that you have combined your passions and resources to do something very unique and address an issue that's a large one that millions of pounds.
Millions of pounds. Yeah, we're moving a lot of weight out here. But thank you for letting me share what we've been doing and what we're working on. Especially as we gear up for Earth Month. I just am happy to kind of talk more about the textile waste issue.
Absolutely. Where can people find you and more information about FabScrap and everything you're doing?
We're on Instagram as fab_scrap. We'll have a lot of fun stuff coming up for Earth Month and through the summer. Our website is fabscrap.org. And yeah, I think you can find everything you need on the website.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Can't wait for people to hear this.
Thank you.
Here we are at the end. You made it. Thank you so much for listening this far. And if you'd like to hear more from Nonprofit Connect brought to you by Rogue Creatives, well, then make sure to subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on so you don't miss out. Because you don't want to miss out. You want to be on the inner circle. You want to know what's going on. Also, if you're interested in working with us or want to reach out or tell us how amazing we are, visit our website, npconnect.roguecreatives.com. You can get all the info there. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Well, we won't see you. We'll hear you. Well, you'll hear us. Whatever. Bye. Nonprofit Connect with Matt Barnes is hosted and executive produced by me, Matt Barnes, with an assist by my chaos coordinator, Tiffany Pope. Production is by our amazing friends over at Fame, the B2B podcast agency, along with Belinda Carter-Thompson and the team here at Rogue Creatives. Production lead is Luke Audi at Fame. Writing is by Sam Hollis at Fame and Matt Barnes and Taylor Bolanos from Rogue Creatives. Nemanja Koljaja of Fame is our audio editor, and Arslan Yakub from Fame is our video editor. Creative direction is by Corey Hill of Rogue. Our artwork is designed by Hopo Kelly and Joshua Marino at Rogue, and Ian Salas of Fame. Theme music is composed and performed by Jared Atherton of Chapters. Luke Audi of Fame does our booking and our guest relations. Huge thanks to our amazing guest for joining us for this episode, and to all of you incredible listeners for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, and I don't know why you wouldn't have, don't forget to help us spread some good by giving us a good review. Preferably, 5 stars with lots of words saying how amazing we are on whatever platform you're listening on. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever it is. Also, tell your friends and subscribe so we can come straight into your potholes each and every time we have a new episode. For more information about Nonprofit Connect or to join us at a live event here in Orange County, California, visit our website, npconnect.roguecreatives.com. We'll catch you next time. This has been a Rogue Creatives production.